رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، قال الإمام زين العابدين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه: اللهم صل على محمد. وأما حق أبيك فتعلم أنه أصلك وأنك فرعه وأنك لولاه لم تكن، فمهما رأيت في نفسك مما يعجبك فاعلم أن أباك أصل النعمة عليك فيه، واحمد الله واشكره على قدر ذلك، ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa zaman. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The rights of the father described quite beautifully in this wonderful passage of Imam Zain al-Abidin salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. The passage is taken from one of the most exquisite pieces of literature in the school of Ahl al-Bayt, known as Risalat al-Huquq, or the Treatise of Rights. Risalat al-Huquq is the book that I would give to a non-Muslim if I wanted to explain to them the religion of Islam. Others may say there are other masterpieces that one should give to a non-Muslim. Most obviously, for example, the Quran. But the reality of the Quran is that if a person does not know the context of when the Quran was revealed, then certain passages of the Quran may be difficult for them to understand. Likewise with the Quran, I don't want to recommend a book to non-Muslims which I myself have not finished reading. There are many Muslims who want to offer the Quran to non-Muslims when they themselves have not finished the Quran from cover to cover with full understanding. Others may say that you should give Nahj al-Balagha, for example, to a non-Muslim. But Nahj al-Balagha, again, if one's history is not that strong, it becomes extremely difficult to understand the context of the sermons of the Imam. The book that I would recommend every Muslim to give to a non-Muslim, in order that they understand the holistic worldview of the religion of Islam, is Risalat al-Huquq. Risalat al-Huquq, as you could tell from the title, looks at the treaties of rights. As we know, no society can flourish unless the members of that society understand their rights upon one another. You find that since time immemorial, man has always sought to try and provide either a Bill of Rights, a Declaration of Rights, a Convention of Rights, a sort of manifesto for how we should live as human beings. If you look around us today, you might find the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, or you might find the European Convention of Human Rights, Or you may find a Bill of Rights. Or you may find, for example, the Magna Carta, let's say. Every society recognizes that there has to be a manifesto or a treatise of the rights of the citizens of that state. The interesting point and what is so exquisite about Risalat al-Huquq is that Imam Zain al-Abidin takes the human being from the physical and transcends them to something which is higher and not something which is purely animalistic. What do I mean? When you look within Risalat al-Huquq, there are certain points in Risalat al-Huquq which the United Nations will never have in their Declaration of Human Rights. For example, the first right in Risalat al-Huquq is the right of God on the human being. Yes. Today we live in a world where if you mention you believe in God, you're laughed at. If you say Mother Nature, they'll accept your essay. If you say God, they'll say, what is this God? Who believes in God? You find that the first right is the right of God upon us. The second right, the right of oneself. Yes, the human is not just made up of the physical. The human is made up of that which is spiritual as well. Yes. You find that Imam says the second right is the right of the nafs of the human being. My nafs has a right over me. The third right, for example, the right of your ears. Tell me the UN has a section called the right of the ears of the human being? No. Risalat al-Huquq of the Imam, the right of the ear, is that you recognize that it's the pathway to your heart. Therefore, be careful what you listen to with your ears, because they get imprinted into your heart. Then you have, for example, the right of one's eyes. My eyes have a haqq over me. The right of my stomach has a haqq over me. The right of one's private parts, my private parts have a haqq over me. The rights of the non-Muslim living in the Muslim country. Yes, in Pakistan, for example, you may have non-Muslims who live in your country. They have a haqq over you. Even the Imam mentions the rights of the mu'adhin, the one who calls you to salah. That mu'adhin has a haqq over you because he opens the doors of thawab for you with Allah. Yes. Likewise, the Imam continues to mention one right after another. One of the most beautiful passages of rights within Risalat al-Huquq is the right of the father in the religion of Islam. Yes. Many of us here, either our fathers are dead or our fathers are alive. And there are some of us here who one day will become fathers. Yes. Therefore, one asks the question, what did Ahlul Bayt say about the right of the father? Because today, sadly, many of us have not shown honor to our fathers, be they dead or be they alive. As in, someone turns around to me and says, wait, are you telling me that my father has haqq over me even after he's died? Of course. Islam says, and the microphone, hopefully the sound will come back shortly. Allah salli ala. Let's have a second salawat, inshallah. And a third salawat. And let's do one for all the ma'soomeen, one by one. Islam says that your father has a right over you even after he's died. Many other religions in the world will say that your father has a right over you while they're alive. Islam says on the contrary, your father has a right over you while they're alive, when they die, in the process of their death, and after they die as well. Sadly today, many Muslims have not honored their fathers with the respect that they deserve. There are many Muslims in the world today, in some cases, do not speak to their fathers with the respect that they deserve. In some cases, do not honor their fathers with the respect that they deserve. And sometimes I wonder that when people go to finishing schools in Paris, in Geneva, in Zurich, you look at the words of Al Muhammad, they are the greatest finishing school you could ever go to. Yes. When you look within Risalat al-Huquq, you find the rights of the father is one of the most exquisite passages that you will ever find Imam Zayn al-Abidin ever said in his life. And that's why in Pakistan, when you honor Father's Day, there has to be a group of us who make a card or make an advertising board in the middle of the main road in Karachi, where this passage of Risalat al-Huquq is advertised for everybody on Father's Day. It's not enough to keep Ahl al-Bayt just in our Imam Bargahs. Those days have gone. We have done that. We've been successful. Now it's time to take Ahl al-Bayt out to the world. Now it's time not to cocoon Ahl al-Bayt for ourselves. Can you imagine in Karachi one day that someone drives past an advertising board and they see on Father's Day the rights of your father according to Imam Zayn al-Abidin? And what does the Imam say? The Imam says, and we'll examine this step by step. The Imam says the rights of your father is that you know that he is your root and you are his branch. And if it wasn't for him, you would never be. So whenever you see anything in yourself that you're impressed with, know that the root of that blessing is your father. So therefore go down and thank Allah in shukr for giving you a father like that. I'd like to examine this in the following stages. Number one, obviously my father biologically is my root. But what does psychologically Imam mean by this statement? Number two, why does the Imam stress that whenever you are impressed with something you've achieved, know that your father is the root of that blessing? Number three, what are the other rights of the father according to the Imam? Number four, if my father is not religious, do I still show my father respect or not? Number five, if my father is not a Muslim, do I still show respect to my father or do I not? Number six, what are the rights of my father after he has died? And how must I honor those rights? And number seven, how did Imam honor those rights when his father lay on the ground in Karbala? Let's examine this and dissect this topic in complete depth. You find that the first line within the rights of the father is an interesting line. Know that your father, the right of your father, is that he is your root and you are his branch. And if it wasn't for him, you would never be. Biologically, someone would say, that's obvious. I know that I could not have come to this world without my father. So therefore, why would the Imam mention this? The Imam is not alluding to the biological. He's alluding to something psychological of the utmost importance. What is it? A human being who knows who their father is, psychologically is in a better place than a human who grows up not knowing who their real dad was. What do I mean? If you look in the world today, there are many mothers who are single mothers. Those mothers, in some cases in the Western world, may have been with a man who they never saw again. That man came with that mother. A few months later, she realizes she's pregnant. That boy or girl, when they grow up in the world, they hate the world that allowed them to grow up not knowing who their dad was. As in, when I go to school and I know that my father has come to pick me up, or when I go to play a sport, I know my father has come to collect me, or at my birthday I see my mom and my dad together. Psychologically for me, knowing who my dad is something great. When a person grows up in a world where they don't know who their dad was, that person psychologically is in a very difficult state. Because that person, their venom against the world in some cases may lead them to hating the world. Not just hating the world, hating those who represent good in this world, yes? If you look, for example, at some of the worst dictators in the history of humanity, many of them did not know who their root was. You ask them, who was your mom? They know their mom. You ask them, who was your dad? They'll turn around to you and say, I'm not sure who my dad was. Why? Because sometimes the adulterous life of the mother may have led to many different candidates for who the father was. As in, there are certain shows in America and Britain where they bring out a mother and they bring out what could be the father. Can you imagine you grow up in a world where you're not sure if that is your father or that's not your father? Yes. You find that in America or in Britain there are shows, the wife is sitting and the possible husband could be there. Yes. So they do a DNA test. When they do that DNA test, is it that husband? No. Next. They bring another one. Next. Next. About 25 minutes later, 74 candidates have applied for this position. When that happens, some of us may laugh, but for that child growing up, that is a devastating thing. As in today, many of our youth ask, why do I have to do nikah for marriage? Why should I do a wedding? I can just get to know a girl and that's it. You do a nikah so there's a spiritual position within your relationship. That both of you, there's a union with one another. Both of you understand the rights of each other. So when that child is born in the world, that child doesn't grow up in a world not knowing who their dad was. In some societies, you have the concept of the one night stand. One night, he's with this woman, and then after that, doesn't come back ever again, doesn't ask about the lady. Does she have a child? Does she not have a child? That child grows up hating this world. If you look at early Islam, there were some of the most famous of the companions of the Prophet. Before they became Muslim, one of the stigmas that they faced in early Islam was not being sure who their father was. As in, we know when the Prophet brought Islam, many of these companions loved the religion and loved him because he brought a moral world to an otherwise immoral society. If you look at some of these famous companions, later on they became Muslim. But before they became Muslim, there was one stigma that would stay against them, being uncertain who their dad was. Let me give you an example. Amr ibn al-As is known as one of the most famous companions of the Prophet. Yes. Amr ibn al-As at the beginning was an enemy of the religion of Islam. He was a supporter of who? He was a supporter of the Quraysh fighting the Holy Prophet. Many thought that his father was Al-As bin Wa'il. One day they wanted to find out, is that the father or not the father? Where did they ask the question? They asked the question. Aqil, the brother of Imam Ali, was sitting with Muawiyah and Amr ibn al-As in Sham. While they were sitting with one another, Aqil, as you know, he knew the genealogies of every family. If you come to sit with Aqil, you ask him, I want to get married to a lady. That lady, I want her, for example, to give me the bravest sons. He's the one who told Imam Ali to marry al-Banin, who gave Imam Ali Hazrat Abbas and his 3 brothers. Aqil was sitting down, Muawiyah, Amr ibn al-As. Muawiyah turned around to Aqil. He said to him, Aqil, you're the man who knows the genealogies? He said to him, yes, I do. He said, may I ask you, Amr ibn al-As, what's his genealogy like? Listen to the reply. He said to him, you want to know his ancestry? He said, yes. He said there were 6 different candidates who said that they may have been the father of Amr ibn al-As. How many? 6. He said to him, so how did you find out who the father was? He said they put 6 different names in a bowl. The mother picked out one of the names and it came out Al-As bin Wa'il. So we called him from that day Amr ibn al-As. Was that his real father? Not necessarily. There were 5 other candidates who could have been his father. For Amr ibn al-As, this was something that hurt him. Why? Because he knew that his father may not be his root. What does Imam Zayn al-Abidin say? Know that the right of your father first is that he is your root and you are his branch. And if it wasn't for him, you would not be. Why? Because the Imam wanted us to grow up in a world where there aren't children who walk around not knowing who their dad is. That child will take out their venom on the world that allowed them not to know their dad. That child will say, what did I do wrong? I grew up in a society. All my friends at school know who their dad was, and I'm the only one who doesn't. Someone said, how do you prove that Al-As is not his father? Al-As bin Wa'il, the father supposedly of Amr ibn al-As, was the one that whenever Rasulullah would lose a child, you know, Rasulullah lost a couple of his sons at a young age. When he would lose them, the narrations mention what? The narrations would mention that whenever the Prophet would walk past, Al-As bin Wa'il would shout out, Abitar, Abtar. Abtar, what does it mean? The tail, when it's cut off of an animal, it is abtar. Therefore you found that what he was saying to the Holy Prophet was that your genealogy, your descendants are all cut. Imagine Rasulullah, and if you want to know what Islamophobia means, this is Islamophobia. That every day when you leave your house, someone insults you. And why do they insult you? They insult you because you've just lost your child. He would say he's abtar, abtar. The Quran would reply, no. When Fatima came later on, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَارِ. The one who makes fun of you, that you have no children, he's the one who has no children in reality, yes? That's Al-As bin Wa'il. He's the one who claims Ammar is his son. No. إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَارِ. That person has no children. Therefore that Ammar has got absolutely nothing to do with that father. In that moment, therefore, what do you find? You found that there was others. For example, you find the governor of Kufa and Basra in the time of Imam al-Hassan. His name was Ziyad bin Abih. Ziyad, son of his father. Imagine in the school register, you put your name. Ammar, son of Ali. Haidar, son of Muhammad. Ziyad, son of his dad. Why son of his dad? Yes. Why doesn't the poor guy know who his dad is? Sadly, because his mother had a particular profession where she wouldn't mind being with others. And because of that, they wouldn't want to call him by what could be his dad. So they called him Ziyad bin Abi. Later on, he has a son called Ubaidullah bin Ziyad. And I'll leave you to imagine the rest. Even Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the 10 horse riders who trampled on the body of Abu Abdullah on the night of the 11th of Muharram, when Umar bin Sa'ad said, oh horse riders, sharpen the hooves of your horses. When they trampled, later on Mukhtar al-Thaqafi caught them. When Mukhtar caught them, he asked them for their names. They gave their name. He said, what's your dad's name? I don't know. So what do you mean you don't know? He said, well, we were born into a house where there was no dad. There were many candidates who could have been our dads. That type of person grows up in a world where they hate the others. There's an envy against others. Because why is it that I don't know who my dad is and others do know who their dads are? And therefore you found that sometimes that son of adultery, yes, that child who comes out not knowing who their dad is, you find that some of them have a real hatred against society. Because they blame the society that allowed that. Some studied Stalin, some studied Mao, some studied Mussolini. Saddam Hussein of Iraq, if you were to ask him who's his mom, he knows his mom. Ask him who his dad was, it's the one thing that hurts him more than any other. That I know who my mom is, but Tikrit knows what my mom's job was. He never knew his dad. Some say he had a stepdad, a violent dad. That could have been his dad, yes. But not necessarily his dad. That person, when they massacre millions, when they find it normal to pour chemical weapons on society, that person, why do you think they do that? Psychologically, not knowing who your dad is a dangerous thing in society. Imam Zayn al-Abidin therefore began the passage by saying what? Know that the right of your father is that he is your root and you are his branch. And if it wasn't for him, you would never be. Then what does he say? So whenever you see anything in yourself that you're impressed with, know that your father is the root of that blessing. Subhanallah. Whenever you achieve success in your life, Imam says, and someone comes and asks you, how did you become such a big businessman? How did you earn such a great PhD? How did you earn so much money? You'll find two types of people. One type will say, well, you know what, let me explain how great I am actually. There is no one like me. I control all of this. It's all begun in this year and that year. And you know I'm sharper than everybody else. So you have to listen to what I've got to say about business. Then there's the one who recognizes, if it wasn't for the prayers of their dad, they would not be where they are today. Yes? That type of person, when you ask him, how did you become famous? How did you become known? How did you get this success? That first type of person doesn't realize if it wasn't for your dad's sweat and your mom's dua, you would not be anywhere in the world today. Yes? Many of us take our fathers for granted. Wallah, to an extent today, the mother has become a slave, a cook, and the father has become a cash machine. Yes? When you call your dad, why are you calling him? I'm calling him because, you know what, Dad, if you can wire me some funds. Dad, send me some money. Dad, do this for me. Dad, do that for me. You who saw all of that with your dad, whenever you achieve something in your life that you are impressed with, don't turn around and say, I'm the one who got all of this success. Wallah, if it wasn't for our dads and their prayers and their hard work, many of us would not be where we are today. Some people are born in the lap of luxury. Straight away, first house they see, luxury house. They see the TVs, they see the laptops, they see the private school education. That person has to realize that that dad of his may not have been born into that luxury. That dad had to wake up tirelessly in the morning, work hard, graft, stand up, work hard tirelessly, travel and come back. Imam Zain al-Abidin says, when you achieve something you're proud of, know that your father is the root of that blessing. Never ever in your life as a Muslim turn around and say, I'm the one who achieved all of this. Rather recognize that your father's dedication and hours of work is the whole reason you are where you are today. Because I'm flabbergasted sometimes when I see some of the youth. When you ask them about their lives, there's no recognition of what their fathers have worked hard on. They think in many cases that this money that comes on the table, buying this clothing, this iPhone, this iPad, this that, they think that these things just come falling from the sky. On the contrary, the hard work of a father is something that should make you turn around at that moment and do what? Please understand this point. The first thing you do when your father comes home is kiss the hand of your father for that work that they've done. Yes? I don't care if the father is 40 or the father is 60 or the father is 90. Automatically, the moment your father walks into the house, a person should be willing to kiss the hand of their father straight away. I see some boys, you see today, the father walks in, he just shakes his hand. Hey dad. I say, what's hey dad? Baba, go down and kiss the hand of your father. That father's hand is a barakah from Allah. Ask anyone over here whose father has died, don't you just wish you could kiss your father's hand one final time? Yes, those whose fathers have died, don't you wish you could hold his hand one final time to thank him for what you've achieved in your life? The Imam moves on from there and says what? There are 4 rights that you must understand when you recognize this about your father. What are they? The first one, you never call your father by his name in Islam. Yes. You never call your father by his name. You look at some people, wallah, you look at him, he'll say, for example, hey John, come here. You're like, John is your brother? He's like, no, that's my dad. So what do you mean John? Since when did we call our fathers by their names? Hey Steve, come here. Steve is your uncle? No, Steve's my dad. Dad, Steve, come here. You calling your father in the religion of Islam by the name is something not allowed. It's the worst of disrespect to one's father. If you look, for example, at a program like The Simpsons, yes, The Simpsons, many of the youth would have seen it, but throughout the show, and how many years it was screened in America, has he ever called his father dad? Not at all. Always Homer, 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 Homer. Even when he was born and about to call his dad dad, even then the word Homer came out of his mouth. Therefore you found the Imam said on the first level, never ever call your dad by his name. Baba, Papa, Sir, all of these things are acceptable, but never once call him by his name. That's number 1. Number 2, what's the second thing? Never enter a house until your father has entered that house. Never enter a gathering until your father has entered that gathering. There are some of us, when we're about to return back towards our homes, you know you've got the luggage, you've come back from the airport, or you've got some shopping you've come back with your dad. You'll see the dad holding 4 or 5 bags and the sons and the daughters have run inside and they're already sitting watching television. Yes. Imam says the finishing school of Ahlul Bayt is you don't enter that house until your father has entered the house. You wait. Dad enters the house, only then I will enter the house. If my father has not entered the house, then there's no way I'll enter the house. Because even today, if I go to a wedding, my dad is next to me. Sometimes we're a bit impatient, especially when the dad becomes older, isn't it? When the dad's a bit older, we become impatient. The dad, come on, why are you walking so slow? Have you forgotten when you used to walk slow and he used to be patient with you? When we were slow walking in the park, look at the videos of you and your dad. He would walk step by step with you. You were 3 years old, 4 years old. Did your dad drag you? Did your dad touch? Did your dad utter a comment? Or did your dad, for example, walk with you every step of the way? The Quran turned around and said, when your parents grow old, lower the wings of mercy with your dad. Yes, in which way? I could see my dad now, the knees may have gone. I could see that the back may have gone. I could see that the white hairs may be there. Shaitan tells me what? Tell the old man to hurry up. He always makes us late. Whereas Ahlul Bayt say, wait. His footsteps are the steps of Jannah on earth. Yes. That my father, when I see him, Imam Zain al-Abidin says, that your father, when you're coming into the house or into a gathering, you don't enter before your dad. Your dad goes ahead and only then. Then he says what? And you do not sit until your dad has sat. Allahu Akbar. Recently, and I know one of the speakers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, one of the well-known speakers, he was at a majlis and his dad was the one giving the majlis. He's sitting down, yes, and his dad was the one giving the majlis. What does the narration mention of this story? That he would, when his dad walked towards Mimbar, imagine the guy has already got his seat because the dad is coming through a different door. He's got his seat already. What did he do? He would, as soon as his dad entered to go to Mimbar, he stood up in the middle of the crowd. People were wondering, what's going on here? Why is he just stood up in the middle of the crowd? While my dad is standing, there's no way that I'm sitting. No chance. My dad is standing, walking, I will stand up. The moment my dad sits on Mimbar, only then I sit on the ground. Look at the etiquette of Al Muhammad. What is Al Muhammad? Except instilling akhlaq into their followers, yes? Today you find that it's normal for the son or the daughter, wallah, the dad walks in from work, sitting down. Hey dad. What's hey dad? Where did we have hey dad from? Tell me who's hey dad. don't know what hey dad is. My dad enters that door, straight away I stand up. Until my dad takes his seat, only then I sit down. There's no such thing as, you know, there are many now, sadly, sitting down at home, feet up. The dad walks in and the feet remain up. There's no akhlaq where the person all of a sudden will put their feet down, stand up, go, welcome dad. Can I get anything for you, dad? Is there anything you're missing, dad? Imam says the right of your father. You don't call him by his name, number one. Number two, you don't enter a gathering until he enters. Number three, you don't sit down until he sits down. Number four, you do not perform an act which brings abuse to the reputation of your dad. Subhanallah. Yes. Our dads work tirelessly to make us closer to Ahlul Bayt. Some of us may think, well, you know what? My dad tells me something is haram, but I don't care. I don't think it's haram, so I'm going to do it. You know what Imam Zain al-Abidin says? Don't do something that brings abuse to your dad's rep, not your rep. Your dad should walk into a mosque with his head held up high. You may want to do a certain act because you don't think it's haram. Yes, there are some youth today in the Muslim world. For example, some youth will say, I want to smoke weed. Say to him, listen, Habibi, this weed is haram. Yes, it's not allowed for you to smoke. He says, but Ayatollah Sistani says that if it is medically prescribed, then it's allowed. He medical prescribed from a doctor, not from your 19-year-old dealer. Yes. As in, if your dealer's prescribing, then no, it's not allowed. Yes. Or if a doctor in Malibu Beach in California is prescribing, you know those aren't real doctors, by the way. But if a doctor is prescribing, okay, doctor prescribes, you're allowed. But for you, a person who hasn't prescribed, that weed is haram. The heroin is haram. The cocaine is haram. Someone says Syed Ammar, but it's not in the Quran, so I'm going to smoke it. I don't care what you guys say. I say, what do you mean it's not in the Quran? Say, show me an ayah in the Quran that says that weed is haram. You're right, there's no ayah. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْوِيدِ. Have you read an ayah? يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْوِيدِ is not in the Quran. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْكَوْكَيْنِ is not in the Quran. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْهَرَوِينِ is not in the Quran. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ. They ask you about what? Intoxicants. Alcohol is known as khamr because it's intoxicating. They ask you about that which intoxicates. Intoxicates to which level? A level where the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Then the ulama may say that it's haram. Or the ulama may say it's haram. Why? Because they say it's a gateway drug. Meaning what? Meaning like cards. Cards by itself is not haram. However, the ulama make it haram, becomes a tool to gambling. How many of us started off with the odd game and then, you know what, just put some money. Some money. Then you see the lovers of Al Muhammad going to every casino on holiday, mashallah. But they love Al Muhammad, so it's okay, don't worry. You find therefore that likewise with weed what happens? It's a gateway to other drugs. Someone says, no, it's not a gateway. I will never move on to other drugs. I don't care about you. Generally people move on to bigger things, not you. You, mashallah, are an angel on the earth. You won't move on. And shaitan will not affect you because shaitan's too weak to affect people like you. You know, shaitan's a weak human being, individual. You find that then someone says, okay, I want to smoke that weed. I don't care what they say. You know, this Tupac, it's famous in the world of music in America. He has this quote about only God can judge me. Yes? Only God can judge me. So some of our youth, what do they say? Say, if I'm going to smoke this weed, only God can judge me. You can't judge me. Well, you're not really helping yourself. But at the same time, Imam says, don't do anything that brings abuse to your dad's rep, not you. When you're smoking away like that, you know what the people talk about your dad? Your dad who's instilled in you the love of Ahlul Bayt. Your dad who works tirelessly day and night so you have what you have. And the only way you can pay your back to your dad is by saying, only God can judge me. What are you talking about? Likewise, in our weddings, for example, the dad wants to invite his Maulana friends. Do you agree? Dad wants to invite his Maulana friends. I personally, I've said this many times, I get invited to nikahs, but no one invites me to receptions. No one. I don't know, am I not cool enough? Am I not cool enough? Why don't you invite me to a reception? No, Maulana, can you come for the nikah? It's the day we show we're religious. So you're telling me that I can only come to a nikah? Yes, you can only come to a nikah. I look at the dad of the groom, I'm like, but me and you know each other well. Maulana, you know, reception. What's this? Your hands are moving, but you're not explaining anything to me. All I see is your hands going like this. Reception, you know, these are young. You know how sad it is that a dad cannot invite his religious friends because of the son or the daughter's behavior? Why? Because, you know, Maulana, tomorrow we bought a DJ. MashaAllah. How amazing the followers of Al Muhammad became. Maulana, we bought a DJ. What's a DJ? Explain to me, what's DJ? DJ is that guy, some guy who looks stoned out of his head anyway most of the time. He's standing in the corner of the room and he's mixing and matching all the tunes for my lover of Ahlul Bayt daughter and my lover of Ahlul Bayt son. And Maulana, you know, sometimes we may have a bar because we have non-Muslim friends who drink as if the Muslim doesn't. There are some stewardesses and stewards on the airlines, when they come and offer, they say, you got Chardonnay or Moët and these, they say, you want some? I say, oh, sorry, Muslim. They said, nah, most of you guys drink more than the rest of them. MashaAllah. I think that salawat is from someone who shares my sentiments about the planes. But you find, so there's a bar in that wedding, and you find there's a DJ in that wedding. Then, mashallah, people want to dance with each other. So the guy gets his wife, let's dance. I don't know where the masculinity has gone, by the way. And I think there's a problem with a lot of our men. I don't think a lot of the men have got that masculine side to them anymore. If I saw anyone looking at my girl, I might be Iraqi, hot-blooded. Yes, we are a bit hot-blooded. But if I saw anyone looking at my girl, I'll finish the guy off. Now, what are you doing looking at my girl? Why are you talking to my girl like that in this wedding? Why do you think you can dance? Get out of my girl's face. I'll finish you and finish your whole tribe. But yesterday, because of reconciliation, I'll say, let's try and shake our hands. But you find that Maulana, the dad wants to invite Maulana. The dad and Maulana been friends for years. That dad wants to invite. Imam says, don't do something that brings abuse to your dad's rep. That's after the wedding. Everybody's like, their family is meant to be lovers of Ahlul Bayt. Did you hear what the daughter was doing? Did you hear what the son was doing? Someone says, but I don't care. No, you do. You do care. Because that man never raised you so that one day you don't show any respect for him. In London a few years ago, one of my good friends invited me to a wedding. I said to him, listen, I really don't attend much and so on. He said, give me a piece of advice. I said, don't start your first day in haram. You want it to be blessed? Start in halal. Don't start in haram. So what do you mean? I said, look, they're going to tell you you got to play music. Nasheeds, no problem, play nasheed. We have many beautiful nasheed. Qawwali, play qawwali, no problem. Let's hear the love of Ahlul Bayt. But this other type of music is not us. We are a school built on class. We are a school of refinement, of the greatest morals, of the greatest individuals. He said to me, but we're going to have peer pressure. I said, no problem. Your dad's going to be there? He said, yes. I said, make him happy. Let your dad invite his Maulana friends. Let them sit down. Let them relax. Let him invite other religious members of society. He said, okay, I'll do it. He comes to me a few years later. Every day says, Wallah, thank you for that advice. Because he said, the day I saw my dad smile in that wedding, I knew he was proud of his son. That while everybody else was being affected by peer pressure, that let's have a cool wedding. Yes. No, on the contrary, I'll have a cool wedding. I'll invite those who really love me. Not those who are just there to see what am I wearing, what's my wife wearing, where did they do, you know, those are always there, wedding crashers they call them, yes. Always these types of people are there. No, I want to invite those who really are happy for us. Imam therefore says what? Imam says that the fourth right of your father is what? Is that you don't do anything that brings damage to his reputation. Not yours. You could say, only God will judge me, but your dad's name is going to be affected. And never should you perform an act which affects your dad's name. Someone asked the question, what if my dad's not religious? In which way? For example, I'm a girl in the Muslim community. I want to wear hijab. My dad says no. Must I obey my father on this or no? It's an interesting point. If your father, for example, saying you can't wear hijab, and you want to wear hijab, must you obey your father because he's your father? No, you disobey. But with akhlaq. He's still dad. But with akhlaq. But you disobey. You wear it. Your dad's not happy. You wear it. No problem. Zainab will be happy. More important than dad. Who's dad? Compared to Zainab? Why do we say in ziyarah? Many times, Bi abi anta wa ummi. May my mom and my dad be sacrificed for you. What's mom and dad, Aba Abdullah? Do you mean that? Or is it just lip service in ziyarah? Bi abi anta wa ummi. Yabna Rasulullah. Don't we say that? May my mother and my father be sacrificed for you. Do you know what that means? When my dad or mom tell me to do something, and you told me to do something else, there's only one winner, and that's you, Aba Abdullah. That's you, Zainab. That's you, Rasulullah. When there is a girl who wants to wear hijab, and her dad says, no, you're not wearing, she must disobey her dad. But with akhlaq, no raising voice, no being rude. Say, Dad, listen, I love you, and you've done everything to make me where I am. but my love for Zainab is greater than for you. And what she stood up for, Dad, I'm going to continue in that way. Sometimes the problem with that is our own sons. Today there is now a movement, I want to marry. Okay, who do you want to marry? I want a girl with no hijab. Why? Why you want a girl with no hijab? Say, no, I want a girl with no hijab. No, say, I want to marry someone who's a lover of Ahlul Bayt. If they don't wear hijab, then we can go on a spiritual journey closer to Allah together. And if they do wear hijab, then Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Isn't that the way? It is rude to say, I want a girl who doesn't wear. Because that's you saying, I want to join in disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether we like it or we don't, wearing it is obligatory. Therefore you find that if someone's father is not religious, say your father tells you, you have to come to a family gathering. In that family gathering, what is there? In that family gathering, we're going to have music and dancing and so on. Do I obey Dad? No, I stay home. But Dad says, Islam says family relations, you must go. No, I'll stay at home. And I'll congratulate the family, but I will not attend. Someone says, how about if my father is not a Muslim? Must I obey my father or no? This is an interesting question. If my father is not a Muslim, why? I married a Hindu girl who became Muslim. She's a convert. Her parents are still Hindu. She asks, must I still respect my parents? Of course, you respect them double as much as you used to. That person who became Muslim comes to the Imam, says to him, I was Jewish, I became Muslim. How do I treat my mom? She's still Jewish. Imam said, you treat her double as well as you used to. When she saw the way he was treating her, she said, who taught you this? He said, this comes from the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Someone says, so do I allow my wife who was a Christian or a Hindu or a Sikh who's become Muslim, do I allow her to go and visit her parents? Of course you do. Of course you do. Is she allowed to go and sit with? Yes. Eat in their house. If the food is not food which is not halal, yes. For example, if it is meat or chicken that is cooked in a non-halal way, then she can't eat that. But if it's, for example, that which is halal in their houses, she can go and eat. Someone says, well, najasa. Forget najasa. This girl has taken a huge step to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that situation, it's no matter anymore that, oh, but her mom is Hindu, her hand, move these things. Move them. Move them. This girl left her family. Already her heart is broken. And now on top of that, and they asked Ayatollah al-Khou'i one day about this issue, that there was a Hindu girl who became Muslim, and she wanted to go back to see her dad. Her dad had made dinner, and many of the Muslims were saying, you can't, you got to beware, your dad, if he touches it, becomes najis. And what are you talking about? This girl has to go and see her dad. This is a secondary law. Yes, there may be exceptions for you who are born Muslim, other issues of law. But for that person who was converted, Allah is lenient with them. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes that the religion has come to bring ease and not bring hardship. Someone asks, okay, that my dad when he's alive, I have rights, or he has rights. How about my dad after my dad has died? Does my dad have rights over me? Of course. There are rights of Allah which you may fulfill for your dad, or rights of the creation which you may fulfill for your dad. Someone says, what do you mean? Rights of Allah, maybe your dad has missed salahs in his life. Yes. That's why 6th Imam says, write a will. Because in that will, make sure you write down if you've missed fasts, if you've missed prayers, write them in the will. So that you make clear that if you die, someone undertakes them. Because today in the Muslim community, you have many who have missed salah from the age of 15 to 21, from the age of 18 to 30. They missed their salah. But now, alhamdulillah, they done tawbah, they changed. But they still have to make up all the qadha prayers. What should they do? They write in a will. Say your dad died, your dad has missed a year of qadha. What should you do? You, as for example, the eldest son, will take it upon yourself to try and pray those qadha on behalf of your dad, or hire someone to pray them. There is a salah called Salat al-Istijara. In Qum, the most famous library in Qum is the library of Ayatollah Najafi Mar'ashi. Yes. You know how he collected all the books in that library? he'd pray Salat al-Istijara. If you're miss Salah, and by the way, missing Salah is not while you're alive, just in case some people are thinking that I'll pay someone to pray Dhuhr for me tomorrow. No. I wish, but no. He used to do what? Anyone whose dads had missed Salahs, they have Qadha, they've died. He used to make sure that he prays them. You give that person whatever, $1,000, $5,000, he prays the Salah for the whole year. Yes. That's number one. Number two, one of your dads missed Hajj, then you do Hajj on niyaba of your dad. Yes. For example, your dad has a haqq over you, that if he's died, you fulfill that. Someone says, how about the rights with others? Maybe your dad has a debt which is outstanding. Many times when we go to a Salat al-Mayyit or to a Janazah, the son stands up. He says, if anyone has anything outstanding from my dad, please come up to me and I will give it to you. Sometimes someone says, I see my dad in a dream and he's crying, he's unwell, he's not looking good. That is possibly because he owes someone money and you haven't paid it, or he owes Allah ibadat and you haven't fulfilled it. Until you fulfill that for dad, his world of barzakh is not a nice place to be in. When you fulfill it for your dad, you'll see a change in the complexion of your dad. That change will highlight that you have fulfilled those things which are missing. What else can I do for my dad? I could do, for example, Umrah on behalf of my dad. Yes, dad has passed away, but my dad wanted to go to Umrah, or he went once. When you go to Umrah, go to Mecca or go to Medina, put a Umrah in the name of your dad. Maybe not an Umrah. Also, if not an Umrah, do a Ziyarah on behalf of your dad. Your dad may have loved Imam al-Rida but could not make it to Mashhad. Your dad may have loved Imam Musa al-Kadhim but could not make it to Kadhim. Go and do a Ziyarah and say that this Ziyarah is on behalf of my father, who instilled the love of Al Muhammad into my life. Number three, do a majlis every year on the anniversary of the death of your father in the name of the Imam he loved the most. Say you know that your dad loved Rasulullah the most. On the day of the death of Rasulullah, do a small majlis at home. Tell Maulana, I've dedicated this majlis to my dad. For it, if it was not for my dad, I would never know the meaning of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. If it wasn't for my dad carrying me to the majalis, I will not know about the aza of Hussein alayhi salam. Never ever let a year go past without you having done a majlis in honor of your dad's favorite imam. Maybe your dad said to you one day, my favorite imam is Imam al-Jawad. Maybe Imam al-Hadi in Samarra. Maybe Imam al-Sadiq in Medina. Maybe he loved Fatima al-Zahra more than anyone. Do a majlis in honor of your father. That is something seen as one of the highest merits that anyone could perform. Further than that, someone says, so therefore what are the duties when they've just died? What must I do? Islam says that when your father's died, he has a haqq over you. What is that haqq? That haqq is to make sure you give your father his burial. Yes. You don't just leave your father's body out there. You make sure that you undertake the rights of the washing of the body of your father, the ghusl of your father's body, the body facing Qibla. You turn the cheek of your father to a particular side. You make sure that that father of yours is honored in this way. I ask you all, my dear brothers and sisters, that any time you have that honor of being able to wash your father's body, thank Allah that you had that honor. For there are many in the world who died without seeing their father in his final moments. Yes. There are kids in the world today, because of a suicide bomb, they don't see their father's body anymore. There are children in the world today whose fathers had their bodies thrown in acid, there was nothing remaining. Yes. There are children who never meet their fathers again because of prison. The prison system takes their fathers. When you get a chance to have that moment where you're able to wash your father's body, or you're able to take the body of your father and put it in a burial site with no dhulm, with no oppression, then know one thing: you are fortunate. For that was not what Zayn al-Abidin could do on the 10th of Muharram. Yes. Who buried Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? Imam al-Hussein, was he buried on the 10th of Muharram? No. 11th of Muharram? No. 12th of Muharram, the night of the 13th of Muharram. If one day your dad dies and they're late with his body, don't be angry. The son of Zahra lay 3 nights on the ground. 3 nights, yes. 3 nights his body lay on the ground. Is it not the greatest injustice that the son of Fatima al-Zahra has no one to bury his holy body? Yes. So who buried him? Night 10, no one. Night 11, night 12, 13. Imam Zayn al-Abidin came from Kufa back to Karbala. Someone says, how? If he was in prison in Kufa, Allah, if he wants to, will let an Imam bury another Imam. Like Imam al-Jawad came all the way to Mashhad to bury Imam al-Rida. Imam al-Jawad was not in Mashhad when Imam al-Rida died. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the same way Asif bin Bargah in the Quran bought the Queen of Sheba's throne for Sulaiman, why could Allah not allow Al Muhammad to come back? Imam Zayn al-Abidin knew his dad had the haqq over him. What was the haqq? His body lay there on the ground. But he hadn't seen the state of his father's body. Because when they killed his father in Karbala, Imam was not near his father's body. He hadn't seen the way it looked. When he returned back to Karbala, the narrations mention, Banu Asad, their wives were unhappy with them that they had not helped Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So Banu Asad, what did they do? Banu Asad turned around, their wives said, we are embarrassed from you, our husbands. How could you leave the son of Rasulullah alone in Karbala? At least go and bury the bodies. Banu Asad came to Karbala, they looked around, and what did they see on the ground in Karbala? They saw bodies. They saw a 6-month-old baby on one side. They saw another body cut into pieces. They saw, for example, one body by the Furat. You lift the right side, the left fell. And you lift the left side, the right would fall. All of a sudden, from a distance, they saw a man coming. One of them called out, be careful, it may be Ubaydullah bin Ziyad. But then someone turned around and said, wait, let's see who it is. The man got closer to them. He said to them, what are you doing here? They said, we've come here to bury the holy body of Aba Abdullah. He said, so why haven't you buried the body yet? It's been 3 nights his body has lay there. They said to him, because we don't know which body belongs to who. He said, what do you mean? He said, there are bodies on the ground, but there's no heads next to them. The heads had been taken towards Kufa. The sunnah is to put the cheek on the side. But where is the head of Aba Abdullah? Where? Imam Zayn al-Abidin turned around to them. He said, then I will help tell you how to bury the head, the bodies. They said to him, please tell us. He said, go and dig 3 different graves. They went and dug 3 different graves. He turned around to them. He said, as for the first grave, bury Habib ibn Madahir alone in that grave. Habib ibn Madahir was so beloved to Imam al-Hussein that he has his own grave in Karbala. Yes, when you go to Karbala, you'll see the grave of Imam, but you'll see next to him Habib alone. Zainab loved Habib ibn Madahir. Imam loved Habib ibn Madahir. He said, bury Habib there. He said, how about next to him? He said, put the companions of my father all in that grave. Put all of them next to each other in that grave. How about the 3rd grave? He said, bury the family of my father in that grave. Yes. At that moment he turned around. They had dug all the 3 graves. They buried everyone. He turned around, and I don't know how he uttered these words. He said, now I'm going to walk towards a body only I and the unseen forces can bury. He began walking towards the holy body of Aba Abdullah. Allahu Akbar. As he got closer, he saw a finger on the ground. Whose finger? When they killed Imam al-Hussein, the ring of his grandfather Rasulullah was on his finger. One of them tried to pull it off, it wouldn't come off. So he got his knife out and cut the finger. He picked up the finger. He was walking. Those of you who've seen your father die, Those steps to the qabr in those final moments, your feet are heavy. It's the last time you'll see his eyes, yes? How heavy were the steps of the son of Fatima al-Zahra, yes? Imam began slowly, as he got nearer, he began to pick up this dust of Karbala. He began to pour that dust on his face, yes? He turned around to Banu Asad. What did he say to them? He said to them, I beg you, bring me a prayer mat. They said, why? Do you want to pray salah? He said, no. I want to gather the pieces of my father's body. Allahu Akbar. How difficult was it to pull arrow out of arrow, out of arrow, after arrow? Yes. He normally has to turn the cheek, but there's no cheek for him to turn. The narrations mention that he placed his father's body into the ground, but there was no head connected to that body. When did he bury the head with the body? On the Arba'een of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. On the 40th, he brought the head back from Sham. He placed the head with the body. The moment the head touched the body, a mu'jiza for al-Muhammad. He heard a voice from the lips of Imam al-Hussein. Allahu Akbar. What did the voice say? The baby, place the baby on my chest. Asghar. Allahu Akbar. The baby, place the baby on my chest. And his neck, place his neck on my neck. Allah. Don't you know, my son Ali, don't you know, the heat of Harmala's arrow hurts me till now. That's why 34 years after Karbala, Imam Zain al-Abidin would cry for Abu Abdullah. Whenever he would see a sheep about to be cut, he would ask the butcher, do you give water to the sheep before you kill it? The butcher would reply, oh son of Rasulullah, of course I give water to the sheep, because it's a creation of Allah. He said, my father lay on the ground with no one quenching his thirst. When he would walk past the Qabristan, he would ask the person, are you gonna bury me when I die? The person would say to him, oh son of Rasulullah, it would give me an honor to bury you when you die. He said to him, my father lay on the ground for 3 nights with no one to bury his holy body. Imam al-Baqir, this is the week of the Shahada of Imam Zain al-Abidin. Imam al-Baqir narrates, Imam al-Baqir says, when the poison surrounded the body of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, in his final moments, I saw him with that pain. What does a son do when they see their father in pain? The son comes and hugs their father, don't you? You hug the chest of your father. He said, I came and I hugged the chest of my father, Imam Zain al-Abidin. He said, the moment I hugged his chest, I saw him cry in a way I've never seen him cry before. Allahu Akbar. He said, when I saw him cry, I said to him, father, why do you cry? In a moment you'll see Rasulullah. In a moment you'll see Fatima al-Zahra. In a moment you'll see Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. In a moment you'll see Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. In a moment you'll see Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Oh my father, why do you cry when I hug your chest? Listen to the reply. This reply is for every lover of Zain al-Abidin, yes? He said to him, oh my son Muhammad, I cry because when I am dying, you are on my chest. Whereas do you know who sat on the chest of my father Abu Abdullah? I had to see shimmer on the chest of my father, and I was not able to stop him beheading my father. Carry on with these tears, I beg you. Imam al-Baqir says, when I came to collect my father's body, we were about to bury him. He said, I saw 2 marks on the body of my father, Zain al-Abidin. He said, one of the marks I knew about, but the other broke my heart when I saw it. What are the 2 marks? He said, as for the mark that I knew about, It was the food he used to carry in the middle of the night for the poor, the bruising on his back from the bag he used to carry. But as for the mark that surprised me, I saw the marks of shame on the neck of Imam Zain al-Abidin. It broke my heart to think that 34 years after Karbala, the marks of the chains of Yazid were still on the neck of my father Zain al-Abidin. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Raise your hands, my dear brothers and sisters. Ya Allah, in the name of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, the one who was ill at Karbala, there are many who have hajat. They have asked me to help with a dua for those who are in difficulties, financial difficulties in health, difficulties in education, difficulties at home. All of us, let's recite the ayah which helps all those who are in difficulties. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Louder please. Amma yujibu al-muttarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Ya Allah, for all of those who are in difficulties, I ask you in the name of the thirst of Aba Abdullah, I ask you in the name of the loneliness of Aba Abdullah, Ya Allah, I ask you in the name of the oppression against Aba Abdullah, answer all of our dua inshaAllah. Ya Allah, in the name of the ill one at Karbala, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Ya Allah, remove the illnesses from the Ummah of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. Ya Allah, allow us to honor our fathers, be they dead or be they alive. Allow us to give them their due right. For the originators of this majlis, Ya Allah, bless them with the wasila of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. And allow them to have the shafa'ah of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. For the people of the country of Pakistan, Ya Allah, unite them on the love of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a surah al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.